Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And welcome to Justice Serve TV. I'm Michael Bryant. Hi, Linda Kenney.
I'm Michael Bryant. I'm so happy that cameras work. I mean, our camera works. Isn't it amazing that we have a little Mac?
It's not resetting. It's not. There's no minute here, minute there lost. It's amazing.
Right. It's not disappearing. It's giving a clear, bright picture, because the last case we covered with Karen Reed had inverted videos, had missing camera footage, had all sorts of stuff. And now we're covering an incredibly important case, one close and dear to our family's heart here in New York City. That is the case of the death of Jeffrey Epstein. And we have a very special guest with us. And we seem to have another government camera. What do they do? Spend millions of dollars on cameras that don't work? Is that part of the requirement?
What kind of cameras do they have that have this 24-hour reset? I mean, is this 1952? I mean, are we supposed to believe that these are cameras that need this physical? Hey, Al, get another reel. We got to throw another reel on the camera here. No, it's all digital. This was 6 years ago, but come on. Anyway, I think one of many problems that we should chat about.
Problems. But we have a very special guest with us. He's not going to show his face, okay? But he's got great initials. You know, the initials are ME for like medical examiner. But this one stands for my friend Mark Epstein, who I've come to know through Michael's work, as I just disclosed right off the bat. Michael was hired by Mark to attend the second autopsy of Jeffrey Epstein and give Mark the information and advise him. And, you know, Michael has been on the airwaves giving his conclusions. And I even have, when we get to it, what Dr. Banerjee is going to be on later, a prop of 4 times the size of a male Adam's apple. You know, a female, I guess maybe this is 6 times my size. I don't know. It's big, okay, but it's a prop, okay. We'll talk about that later. But Mark, we are so excited to have you on the show because you're the man who is seeking the truth.
Yes, I am. One correction: Dr. Baden was not. There wasn't a second autopsy. He was
right.
Autopsy.
It was the original autopsy. You're absolutely right.
Which was done by Dr. Roman, the city pathologist, and Michael Baden was there to witness it for me. Yes.
Right. You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. As usual.
Well, I try to stick to the facts because there's a lot of people out there speculating, and I don't want to do that.
Well, you know that I appeared on another network this morning talking about your brother's death, okay? Given the 2-page report that was released, very interesting report with the opening line, as was pointed out to me today, says, as part of our commitment to transparency, we will show you nothing. We will give you nothing.
It's perfectly clear we're showing you nothing. That's how transparent we are.
Yeah. So I know there's a lot of points that you want to hit and we want to talk about. So we'd like to let you start, and then we want to show you some video that I think we'd be interested in.
You want me to start with?
Yeah, Mark, I want you to start because there's a lot of secrecy and cover up in my opinion. And I have a different, remember, I'm going to advise everybody that I'm my own person. I'm not my husband's person. Anyone wants to try to tell me what to do, and you can even ask my husband on that. That ain't going to work, okay? So I've gotten interested in this case. I think that there's a lot of problems, but I want to hear some of the issues that Mark thinks are more important, what he has been seeking for years now and cannot get.
Yeah, one of the things is what they call the PCR. It's the pre-hospital care report that's filled out by the EMTs and submitted after every call they make. It's part of their routine. And I was told I should see it because there was something in there about Jeffrey that I should see. And I haven't been able to get this report. I tried it with a FOIA request. I couldn't get it. So I actually went to the fire department headquarters downtown Brooklyn to where they keep these records. And I have this on videotape. I kept my camera running. And it does not appear in the system. The call at the fire department, we know the fire department EMTs were there because we saw them in the photograph when they were taking Jeffrey out of the prison and he was intubated and they were squeezing the air balloon to try to make it look like he was still alive. So we know the fire department EMTs were there, but there's no record in the system of that call. I also can't get a copy of the 911 call. Like, who called the 911 call when they found Jeffrey dead? And also other questions like, why was he intubated? Why were they trying to squeeze air into him when the autopsy showed that he was dead for a minimum of 2 hours before he was found? So he was found, and now when they're taking him to the hospital, that's another hour later or so. So he's been dead for 3 hours, and they're trying to make it look like he was alive. For what purpose? Also, I have a photograph of him in the hospital on a gurney, dead, wearing a hospital gown. So someone decided to dress this dead body in a hospital gown, putting his arms through the sleeves and ties in the back. Usually dead bodies are in body bags or covered by a sheet. So who was running the show? That's why I'd like to see the video, the extended video of what they just showed of when they took Jeffrey off the tier and who was the last person on the tier when they locked it up. I want to see that footage from that camera from 10 o'clock on the 9th till noon on the 10th, because it would show who was there and who took Jeffrey's body off the tier. And like I said, who was running the show. I can't get that information. We're also trying to find out who were the other inmates on that tier. There's only, I think, maximum of 14, so it's not a huge number. And I'd like to find out who they are, when they got there, and where are they now? Because a lot of those inmates were transferred out after Jeffrey's death. So was somebody planted in there to kill him and then transferred out into the ether? So we can't get a record of who those inmates are. There's got to be, the records have to exist, but we can't get any of these things. And if this was clearly a suicide, as they're trying to claim, why the charades? Why the secrecy? Why not the transparency? This has been anything but transparent. I asked for that videotape, which would show from the night before till the afternoon, and I was initially told I couldn't get it because it was an active investigation, and I understand that. But after the investigation was over, years later, I asked for it again. I was then told, and I have this in writing from the Bureau of Prisons, that the videotape that I was asking for, the cameras that were working, don't show that area. Okay, and this is Bill Barr came out after the death and said he personally watched the videotape and he saw that nobody went in or out of the tier. He saw the tier door in the camera. That's the videotape I'm asking for, and I was very specific about it. And then they were telling me it doesn't exist. After telling me I couldn't get it because it was part of an investigation. It just doesn't pass the laugh test. That none of this is transparent.
And also the video that they are releasing, none of them show Jeffrey Epstein's, your brother's door, right? So his cell, none of them. We haven't seen one, right?
That they had the cell doors. It's not. And now it's questionable. Is that the tier door that they showed in this recent video? I'm not even sure if that's the tier door.
Yeah, it's almost useless, and we'll go into it in some detail after we get a chance to talk with you a little bit more. But I have this question for you, Mark. With all of those questions in your mind, and then you hear there's going to be this release of information, what were your hopes? And I'm pretty sure what the realization was, but what were you thinking you were going to get and learn with this latest release of information?
Well, the release of information that they spoke about with the client list, is that what you're referring to?
Well, I mean, anything regarding the death itself. The client list, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, good, because I'm only interested in the death. The client list and the case against him, I'm not concerned about that. I'm interested in his death. Well, I thought they would show something that happened. Look, when I first heard that Jeffrey was dead from an apparent suicide, I just accepted that as fact. I had no reason to doubt it. He was potentially facing a long prison sentence. But then after the autopsy, when Dr. Roman, who was the city pathologist who did the actual autopsy with Dr. Baden there witnessing it, they both came out of the autopsy saying they couldn't call it a suicide because it looked too much like a homicide. And then a few days later, the chief pathologist, Barbara Sampson, determines it's a suicide. She has yet to explain how she came to that determination, bearing in mind she never saw the body. She was not at the autopsy. So how could she then override the collective decision between Roman and Dr. Baden that this looked more like a homicide? It just does. Again, it baffles the mind. It leaves a very big question. What was her basis of that determination?
Has she ever picked up the phone and spoken to you? Has she ever picked up the phone to call you?
Barbara Sampson, no. I try to contact her. She doesn't respond. She doesn't respond to phone calls or emails.
Even as a member of the family, you were still a member of the family, regardless of who it is. And the medical examiner's office didn't even try to contact you or respond to you in any manner at all?
No, they didn't. I mean, I've heard, in the Justice Department report, which is filled with a lot of crap, they said that they notified the family after the death. Now, I'm the only family. There's no other heirs. Jeffrey had no children. Our parents are gone. And they didn't notify me. I learned that Jeffrey was dead on CNN that morning. That's how I found it. So they didn't notify me. So
on CNN? Seriously? You were watching TV and that's how you learned?
I was in Norfolk, Virginia, at a hotel having breakfast, and CNN was on the screen, and it comes across that Jeffrey Epstein was found dead of an apparent suicide. That's how I learned.
Holy moly! That even makes it to me even worse with regard to it. Has anyone ever told you who was? Now Jeffrey was moved from his cell to the infirmary. Have you ever been told there's videotape of that, or there's anyone taking a phone camera or anything?
Yes, I was told that in the infirmary and all the way to the hospital, there was somebody with a handheld video camera. And I was told by somebody on the scene that somebody had a handheld video camera. And where's the tape from that? Can't get it. Haven't seen it.
And how about phone footage? I mean, everyone walks around today with our phones, right? We walk around with our phones. I mean, we've seen it in every single case. People are taking a phone. No one even said they were taking video of a phone. No one came to you. Has anyone come to you? Did anyone actually come to you personally, call you personally, to say, we want to talk to you about what we found before they released this last finding of information?
No, absolutely not. No. I mean, people have contacted me through the years to try to extort money out of me. They're telling me they have information. All I got to do is send them bitcoins, the typical nonsense you would expect in a situation like this. But no official has ever called me about it.
Wow.
So Mark, with all of these questions that have been circulating for so long, and now we hear from the Department of Justice, it's a done deal. We're done. We've done all we can do. What's the next step for you? Where's your justice?
Well, I'm giving information to people like yourself who have maybe the ability to investigate this further, to push harder, because I can't do it as one person. It's hard. And there are other people trying to investigate this. And people don't want to leave this alone because it doesn't pass the laugh test. Anybody who has looked at all of the information, because a lot of people just look at one little bit, and they don't know what to make out of it. But the people that have seen a lot of this information, or most of this information, come to the conclusion that this was a suicide. And if you look at the people that are covering it up, you got Bill Barr first made that ridiculous statement that nobody went in or out of the tier, and that convinced him it was a suicide, even when there was other people on the tier that could have done something. I mean, it's such a naive statement from the top law enforcement guy in the country. That's a joke, and then you get Pam Bondi doing a thing. Then you get Kash Patel saying, in the congressional hearing, he's saying that, he's a prosecutor and he gives a list of his credentials. And he says, a suicide when you see it. And I question, how many suicides has he seen? What makes him an expert on suicides? Is he a pathologist? Is he a medical doctor? I even joked. I said, does he have a Boy Scout first aid merit badge? I mean, what's he basing his expertise on? It's obviously bullshit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Dr. Baden has done about 500 autopsies on prison deaths. And I don't know how many Dr. Roman has done, but I'm sure it's more than one. So what's Kash Patel's expertise here, where he can clearly state, it's suicide when you see it? And he didn't even see it. He never saw the body.
He saw pictures. That was it. He saw pictures.
Yeah, he saw pictures. And if you look at the pictures, it doesn't look like a suicide. If you look at the mark on Jeffrey's neck, it doesn't look like somebody who was hanging by the neck. It looks like he was more like strangled. And there's questions of lividity on the body. He should have had lividity in his legs from the way they said he was hanging. And he doesn't. There's just a whole lot of things that don't add up.
Yeah, it's unending. So why do people want to believe that he killed himself, Mark?
Well, I don't know. Well, normally people like to believe what they hear. That's just a human trait. So people hear things, and unless there's something to tell them otherwise, they believe. Look, when I first heard he was dead from an apparent suicide, I believed it. I had no reason to question it. Right? I mean, it's a possibility that someone in that position might commit suicide. But then also I found out afterwards that he had a bail hearing coming up to appeal his bail. And if he got bailed, he'd be out. He'd be living in his home awaiting trial. So why would he kill himself, days before a bail hearing? I could understand if they had the bail hearing and he was denied bail again and he chose not to live another year in jail, before a trial, then take yourself out, but not before you have a chance of getting bail. That doesn't. I knew my brother. That doesn't add up.
Right, and we're going to, by the way, talk about those marks. We do have. I showed it to you, but we'll go through it with Dr. Baden when she's on. Here is a 4 times the size of a male. The neck, the Adam's apple of the neck, and here is the hyoid bone, which is going to be here. It's a little smaller, and let's see, thyroid cartilage that we talked about earlier today when I was on Julie's show over here. And so these 3 bones are all fractured and all have hemorrhage under them. And we'll go through this a little more with Dr. Banerjee. And so that is very unusual, as you know, Mark, right?
Well, the thing is, it's very unusual. Dr. Baden said that he's never seen 3 broken bones like that in a suicidal hanging of this nature. I read a report from the Philippines where they were investigating broken bones in the neck from suicide, and they talk about a potential break or 2 breaks. Never heard of 3 breaks. Another possibility for the 3 breaks, if someone's being killed by like military, a lot of times they'll get a karate chop to the neck, which crushes the neck and incapacitates you. It also prevents you from screaming. And then in the military, like you see in the movies, they'll hit you in the neck and then twist your head and break your neck to kill you. But in this particular case, he might have been hit in the neck because a karate chop could cause that damage to his neck, and then strangled.
And then staged. Now, you mentioned that there were other detainees on the cell. Have you ever seen any written interviews of those detainees? Have you been told who they are? Have you been told why they were moved out of the area? Has anyone ever told you that from the law enforcement?
Oh, there was one guy named Reyes who was Jeffrey's roommate for a while, and I believe he has passed away since. That guy, Nicholas Taglioni, was on the tier. Jeffrey roomed with him for a brief period of time, and he's the one that roughed Jeffrey up, supposedly, when they thought Jeffrey tried to commit suicide prior, but it turns out that he got roughed up. So I don't know who the other inmates were. I can't get that information.
They won't give you that information at all.
And there was no record of interviews with them in the Justice Department report. I don't recall seeing that.
Yeah. And then one other question before, I know Michael wants to play a little bit of an interview, a tape for you. In the report, you said, besides the guards that fell asleep, that were disciplined, that were indicted, blah, 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 that for 11 hours, Jeffrey wasn't checked on as he's supposed to be. There's an unnamed guard number 1 and an unnamed guard number 2. Do you know, first of all, if they're really guards and who they are?
Yeah, we don't know that because, Michael Thomas and Tova Noel are the 2 guards we know about that got in trouble for, not doing their reporting. We also know that Michael Thomas came on shift in the middle of the night. So he wasn't there at 10 o'clock, it was 10:30 when the tier was locked up for the night. Tova Noel was there with an unnamed guard number 1. And it was because there's never, ever just 1 guard there. There's always at least 2. So there was an unnamed guard number 1 and the mention of an unnamed guard number 2. Who were they? And why are they unnamed? We know Tova Noel's name and Michael Thomas's name. So who are these people? Were they actually prison guards? Or potentially could they have been someone who killed Jeffrey before the tier was locked up for the night? Because the autopsy showed Jeffrey was dead for at least 2 hours. Okay, but in closer examination of the photographs, Jeffrey was relatively clean shaven.
Now, why is that important? You and I spoke about this. Why is that important?
Well, because it can help determine when he was killed. Or when he died, let's put it that way. Because in prison, they bathe and shower Monday and Wednesday and Friday afternoons. So we have to assume Jeffrey washed up and shaved Friday afternoon. Now, if he was found at 6:30 in the morning and he was only dead for the 2-hour minimum that we know he was dead, that would be 4 something in the morning. So if he shaved in the afternoon, by 4 the next morning, he should have more of a beard stubble on his face. He doesn't. He's relatively clean shaven, which leads us to believe that he died a lot earlier in the night. So maybe it's when they locked up the tier. Maybe he was killed then.
Well, there's also been this garbage about that there's a central locking system, but that was put in afterwards. These are the old time key lock, right? Anyone could have a key, could get into a prisoner's cell, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding. And I was also told by another source a long time ago that cell doors were left unlocked that night. And another person verified that they weren't surprised to hear that, somebody with some knowledge. So, if cell doors were left unlocked and somebody was planted in there to, take Jeffrey out, they could have taken Jeffrey out, went back to their cell, and then they transferred out in a couple of days. Another fallacy in the Justice Department report, they try to make it sound, they said that Jeffrey's cell could be seen from 3 other cells, trying to make it sound like it would be impossible for someone to get there. But if you look at the photographs of the cells, the doors have very narrow windows, maybe about 6 inches wide by maybe 2 feet high. So if you were in the cell opposite Jeffrey's and you were standing behind the door, you could see his cell. But if this took place in the middle of the night, the inmates would be in their beds. They wouldn't be able to see out the door. And the other 2 doors that might have visibility to Jeffrey, in order to see his cell door, you'd have to stand right behind that door and look sideways out of that window to look down the corridor to see Jeffrey's cell door. Again, in the middle of the night, no one's going to be doing that. And they were trying to make it sound like, oh yeah, 3 cells could see his cell, and not really. Unless you were standing behind the door, very close and craning your neck to look sideways. It's just, again, it just doesn't make sense. There's just so much of this that, if it was a suicide, like you mentioned earlier today, most suicides are transparent. It's pretty clear. And the question here, there's just so many questions that, it's beyond reason.
And I say that as an attorney who's handled. I've had clients pre conviction who have killed themselves, who have died by suicide in jail, and then one, Aaron Hernandez, as everyone knows, who hung himself up. And Aaron, by the way, was a model prisoner. He was in for a murder, but he was found not guilty of the 2 murders, two homicides afterwards when we represented him. And he had privileges to go into unlocked cells. There's certain prisoners would have privileges. And I knew that from representing him and from representing other clients. It depends on, if you're an honor prisoner and you can go downstairs, you can have a hot plate, a hot pot, and walk around. So what people necessarily think that everything is just completely locked up is not necessarily the case especially when you're a detainee and you haven't been convicted of anything.
Yeah, you can also pay for special privileges.
Yep. Been there with clients.
There are just so many issues here, Mark. Back to your point about who could see or not see what was going on in neighboring cells. That assumes there were people there. That assumes they hadn't already secreted these people out of the area, so that maybe if they had the possibility of seeing something, they wouldn't be there to see anything. And there's nothing that I've seen that confirms to me that people were there. There's a lot of stuff missing, a lot of tape missing, a lot of guards sleeping, but not enough that would convince me that anybody was there to see what could have been happening in that cell.
Well, I think there were other prisoners in those other cells because there were like 11 or 12 prisoners. So I think those cells did have prisoners, but if they were sleeping in their cots, like I said, unless they were standing right by their door in the middle of the night trying to see Jeffrey's door, they wouldn't see anything. And if you wanted to pass their room, all you have to do is just duck down because the windows are about 4 feet off the ground. So it wouldn't be hard to sneak around there, especially at night when people are laying down in their cots. You just stay low. No one's going to see you from any cell.
Yeah, I think Michael wants to. You have another.
Which one did you want to share? I got a few of them here. Do you have one?
I think you wanted the one with Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah, let's do that one. Right? I find that interesting for a couple of points. Let me ask first, though, Mark, did you look at maybe not the whole 10 hours of video they've released, but the significant, supposedly important moments? Have you looked at that?
I saw something just before, but first of all, they showed somebody. I tried to blow it up, and I'm not convinced that was Jeffrey to begin.
Get your point.
I watched it the first time I watched it, Mark. I said that could be my grandmother. I mean, yeah. I don't. What is that? It's a shape, Yeah, it was brutal. Okay, so
do you have that teed up too, Michael?
Somebody mentioned
I don't have that one teed up.
Jeffrey was about 6 feet tall, so if it looked like somebody who was short, well, that certainly wasn't Jeffrey.
No, it was just to say it was inconclusive is a massive understatement.
Somebody also told me who was investigating this that the door they showed was not the tier Jeffrey was on. That's what I was told. I'm not saying that as a fact because I like to keep facts, really straight. But I was told that they investigated like the plans of the place, and that door was not the tier Jeffrey was on. And when they showed where Jeffrey was the cell, they said they put him in a cell. He wasn't in a cell. You have to go onto the tier to put Jeffrey in his cell. So it didn't seem to be that the whole show, so to speak.
We have a big supporter here of the fact that your brother didn't kill himself, Will DeGlara, who also covered the Karen Reed trial and is very familiar with the whole issue of cameras and government corruption and government non-transparency and government secrecy and government hiding and government cover-up. So thank you, Will, for expressing that. We really appreciate it.
Okay, this was quite the interview, and I've got some bits and pieces that I want to share because I remember this was a month ago. This is the Kash Patel, head of the FBI, and obviously this is from the Rogan show. But there was a point in time which he starts talking about, what they expect to show, what they've got to present to the public.
Prison cell with injuries on his neck on 25 of July. After this incident, he's placed on suicide watch.
I'm not saying every single camera in the place was working. I'm saying we've got footage and you're getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can make up your own mind. And
Right.
the theories can continue. But my job.
So you became aware of this footage recently?
The ones that we're looking at, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but this is like an article from quite a while ago that was saying that the footage was mistakenly erased.
Look, I mean, it goes back to the same. Ask the people that were in power then. I mean, I get it that you want to hold me to account for their actions, and
No, I'm not
not
saying,
you, not you.
I'm not saying that.
Not you. Just the public in general, and that's okay.
What's confusing to everybody today, first of all, it's very confusing because AI can kind of make anything. Which has got to be a bizarre position for you to be in when you're looking at videos. I mean, I've watched Viking videos, look real as fuck, They just make Viking towns. I mean, it's really quite incredible what they're doing now, and it accelerates every month. I mean, I talked to Elon about it, and he said we're blown away literally every week. Every week there's some new breakthrough. We're like, wow, we didn't expect that.
Well, I can tell you after having looked at it, this ain't going to be AI.
You don't think so?
It's just not great. It's like if it were AI, like someone wanted to come in and make it, they'd make it better.
But why would you make it better when people could, you could have ambiguous footage that is, totally generated by AI. I mean, AI can generate blurry images. AI can generate night vision. AI can generate essentially anything that's already existed, like really shitty 1984 VHS tapes. They can do that.
They can. But I'm telling you, I'm giving you the tape from the tape.
Mm-hmm.
There's just like I'm giving you the documents from the vault, just like I'm giving you information to Congress on COVID origins or what have you. What we find is what you're getting.
Okay, so now it's
okay. So, do you feel any better, Mark? Knowing that? Oh man,
Be better? No, he said a bunch of nothing.
Well, we find out what you're getting. We didn't get anything. We didn't get anything. Unless they, quite frankly, I'm surprised they didn't make up a tape and say, oh, look, we found the footage from the tier that night. We found them being moved into the infirmary. We found them taken from the infirmary to the ambulance. They have none of that. None. Zippo.
Right.
And I think what Mark is most embarrassing is that the reliance on it, this holier than thou approach. This is it. This is the Holy Grail. We have found it. This explains everything. It is so unbelievable. Why not just say this is what we've got? It may not answer all the questions. Quality is a little questionable, but this is it. But to rely on it and to stake their reputations, whatever that may mean, on this is it. This answers our questions. What do you think about that?
I think you mentioned the word reputation. The reputation's in the toilet, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and there's everyone understands that there's a lot of people out there, especially I know we have separated the list, and I did the same thing this morning. I said the list is like show and tell for people because everyone wants you to talk about the list. There's a list, whether there's a list, there's no list, there's a list, there's no list. They don't want you to talk about this. And if you keep talking about the list and you're basically talking about something that doesn't really count in terms of discovering whether or not there was transparency, there was a conspiracy, there was a cover-up, and whether there was a murder here of your brother.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't get involved with the case, but just off the cuff comment about the supposed list. I think if there was a list of people that were involved with some sexual activity with these girls, with all the victims out there, the hundreds of victims, somebody would have dropped a name and somebody would have said, I was forced to sleep with X, Y, and Z. That hasn't happened as far as I know. To keep all these hundreds of young women victims, mum about who they might have been with. It doesn't pass the laugh test. Somebody would say who it was. You don't need the government to have a list. And where did the government get the list from? Who told them? So whoever told the government that of this potential list, they would have the information. They can let it out. They're not prohibited from.
Right, and of course they would never give it to all the victims and say, here's a list of everybody of all of you. Let's just share the list. I mean, they're never going to do that. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And if there is a list, you're going to keep it secret if you're somebody. And of course, you could have a list that is in somebody's head. I mean,
that's just it. I'm not getting bogged down by the concept of lists. I think that's too literal. I think there may be content somewhere that's been memorialized, but that's a different story. Mark, I want to ask you this, because nobody knows more about what the evidence is, what the evidence isn't, than you do. And again, we're talking to Mark Epstein, the brother of Jeffrey Epstein, in light of the revelation. I saw one outlet said bombshell by blah blah. Bombshell. It was like a dud. Call it a bombshell. Mark, what do you think happened?
Well, I think he was killed, and realistically, looking at it, either he was killed by the guards, this unnamed guard number one, unnamed guard number two, we don't know who they are, a potential that they could have killed him before they locked the tier up, or somebody was planted on the tier to kill him, and cell doors were left unlocked. They got into his cell, they killed him, went back into the cell, and then they were transferred out. That's why we're trying to get the list. We'd like to know who were the other prisoners on that tier, when did they get there, and where are they now? Like I said, Taglione was there for a long time, so obviously he wasn't planted there to do anything to Jeffrey, and we still know where he is. So scratch him off the list. But who are the other unnamed prisoners or inmates on the tier that night? We can't get that.
And do you think they, if this happened that way, were acting on their own or at somebody else's direction, payment, what?
No, I think somebody either paid him or it could have been a covert operation. He could have taken out the Black Ops thing. If the people in the government, someone in the government might have wanted him to take him out because of what he knew.
It was awfully convenient. That's all we could say. Now, for those of us who are watching, because we're going to be sharing this video too, and Mark is the best spokesperson for, he wants to find out what had to happen. Whatever you think of Jeffrey Epstein, this is Mark's brother, and it has implications beyond Jeffrey Epstein. It has implications about the government, transparency, about hiding things, about being secret, things that we just saw in the Karen Reed case, so to speak, and all. But if you have a tip and you were one of the detainees, I mean, just email us at justiceservedtv at gmail.com, and we'll keep your email secret, except from Mark. We'll be discussing it with him. Let us know if you have any leads, because if you're in that position, you'd want the same help that we're asking you out there to give Mark Epstein.
Yeah, if anybody knows who the inmates were, let us know.
It's got to be frustrating, Mark, and we really appreciate the time spent to kind of express some of that frustration at this latest disclosure of nothing from the government. What a surprise. Government lets us down again.
My life would have been a lot easier if I believed that this was a suicide, because I could have dealt with my brother's remains and moved on with my life, losing a brother, obviously. But it doesn't seem to be the case.
Yep. And I know you're in it for the long run until you find out the truth. And what's very interesting is in all this, Joe Rogan obviously made some nice comments about Michael. Pam Bondi worked with Michael on the Anderson case down in Florida. I think that they respect his opinion on a personal basis, but there's something more going on here that maybe that we can surmise, but that we don't know exactly. Because quite frankly, if there's nothing going on, we're going to put this list of questions that Mark has addressed, we're going to put it up and we're going to go over it before the end of the show. So everybody has this list of questions. And if you can help answer them, please do, because the government's report, by the way, that, as I said, didn't take off the metadata By the way, if you looked at the 2-page report and you go to PDF it, it says final_draft_E. By the way, you've done a lot of things you haven't shown us, but you can't take off the metadata for the document. But certainly this is not a commitment to transparency. And we're going to stay on it, right, Michael Bryant?
You bet. We definitely will. And could not have learned from a better source what the family has or has not been told. So, Mark, again, thank you so much. We appreciate you helping us follow this case.
I'm glad you're interested. Thank you.
Okay. Take care, sir. All right. So, again, yes, we know it's Jeffrey Epstein. But can you imagine a family member being unlived, and then not knowing what the hell happened?
Right, and this is having you normally you can file a suit, you can get some of this stuff where they'll meet with you, they'll give you some of this stuff, they'll sit down with the family member and talk to the family member, especially if you're an independent agency like the medical examiner here. None of that seems to be done. And the fact that the cameras weren't working, right?
Well, it's just the guards fall asleep. I mean, the whole thing is such a joke for people to actually believe. I don't know, 2 or 3 of those coincidences is ridiculous. Let alone, I think there are 7 or 8 last time I actually started itemizing them. Speaking of lists, and it's an embarrassment. And then I guess that's what happens when you're in the highest levels of government. You just say, "Here it is, peons. Here's the stuff. Choke it down. We're moving on." And they expect people to do that. I don't know if that's what happens in this country. And if we can help clear up some of those questions, I'd be happy to do that. So.
As a matter of fact, you want to, before we bring our next guest on, you want to talk about there was a video about why everyone is so interested in this case, and it's being kind of pushed aside, right?
Well, I thought this was very telling, and I think this was bad optics, as they say. This was the cabinet meeting yesterday, and President Trump has a lot of cabinet meetings, far more than the predecessor used to have, which is generally a good thing. And it's a free-for-all. The press is there, and they may be there for one purpose, but they're going to ask whatever questions they want to ask. So in this particular meeting, remember when this story hit? The big grandiose, it's coming out, the Epstein information, it's coming out. So everybody, of course, is ready for that. We've got video. And so it's not a surprise that, in fact, it does come up in this meeting, in the cabinet meeting. But is it a good idea to ask questions in the cabinet meeting that relate to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein? What do you think? You think it's a good idea?
Let's listen. Let's find out.
I'm stalling because I'm trying to find the actual video that I've got here.
Hey, well, we say that. Let me just say, we want to thank Mark Epstein for coming on.
Yes.
And talking to us. And really, again, he is trying to find the truth, as we all would, about what happened. And this case has more implications because you do have 1,000 people or more possibly being trafficked, and they would like to know, because if you find out who killed Jeffrey Epstein, if indeed it was a homicide, you may find out who's behind, as I said earlier today on a show I was on, behind the whole idea of this trafficking ring.
Okay, so I won't play the reporter's question. To be honest, it was really long and boring and not very well crafted. But it was basically, what about this Epstein information? And this is what.
Who are these people here, right? President Trump, Bondi, in the middle is Marco Rubio, right?
There you go. And of course, that guy with the gold tie.
Jeffrey Epstein, this guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. also to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every year, every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
All righty then.
That sounds like Karen Reed.
Yeah.
It sounds like Karen Reed. Okay, they were inverted. Let's see if we can find other inverted. Oh, it doesn't all
Yeah,
matter.
here's some more inverted video. So here's some more video where that minute is missing, which we can get to. But I see Dr. Banerjee is here, and I don't want to hold her off too much longer.
Yeah.
We can circle back to that after you do your show and tell.
Yeah.
So I want to look at that video. We're going to sit here together and look at 10 hours of video. So get your sleeping bags, folks. No, I went through it. It was fun. And there are some very important moments, like when my grandmother is walked across the foyer there into what is the area near the cell, and a couple of other key moments for what they're worth. But I want to go over those with folks.
And that's what you and Mark were just talking about, that it could have been anybody, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see it. And even if you have, great editing and you push in and you tighten and you try to, I can't say it's not him. I sure can't say it's him.
He committed suicide or died by suicide.
And that still doesn't tell me anything. That tells me when he went to the area that was kind of where his cell was. Okay.
Right, that's it.
So Dr. Banerjee has been nice enough to join us, and you have you got your props handy there.
I am. I just want to thank all the people who are gifting all these memberships to us.
Pretty active at the bottom.
Mo, Joey Kane, of course, who we first got to meet yesterday, Kay Schmidt. Thank you all for gifting these memberships to Justice Serve TV. And we thank Mark Epstein for coming on. Now, I know, Priya, you were texting me, and I didn't see it, and I couldn't really give you the YouTube link to see the show.
I got it.
But you did get it. Okay.
Yes.
We have a prop. Okay. Do you have a prop?
I don't have that prop. I have different props, mainly of skulls. So we'll use your prop.
Okay. I have a prop. This is 4 times a male Adam's apple.
Orient us to where we are with that thing. What do you got?
Okay, so we're right here is the hyoid bone.
See where it says
so
hyoid?
You see my hands? It's just similar, not in function, but I would say in thickness and structure. It's like a U-shaped bone. If you've ever played the wishbone game at Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So that's how that's how I just describe it in court. It's a thin bone that's delicate. Usually under 30, it's wiggly as you age. So it's made up of 3 bones. When I say wiggly, the center part where it says hyoid on Linda's thing is usually 1. And then you can see where the joints are, those lines in front of those horns go up to the thyroid, Linda.
Right up here?
Well, no, that's okay. The horn, it's
up
like,
here, the horn up
yeah,
here?
so the C would be made in like 3 pieces. So this is the front and the 2 horns in the back, okay? So
this is muscle, by the way. Someone's asking about that part. This is muscle.
Yes. So there's like the little horns, the lesser horns on the hyoid, which are like, when you hold it up, it looks like 2 little horns on your head. Yeah. You see the lines in front of it? Those are the joints.
Here's the lines. Here's the lines.
That's it. And then on the other side. So those are where normally the wiggliness happens. Wiggliness being like completely medical. And then that is where generally there's fusion as we age. I am well above 30, so I don't know, but I assume mine's fused. You can have normal non-fusion, like it's just like a normal variable in the population. And why I'm getting to that is even if it's unfused, it shouldn't have blood in it. So if there's any trauma fracture, you can still fracture through the joints, A, if it's fused, or B, if it's unfused, you'll still see bleeding. So that's the hyoid bone, very delicate, sort of like the wishbone in turkeys, when you pull on it both sides. So why I use that wishbone is because it's very relatable.
Sure.
And if you only have one wing of or one end of that wishbone being pulled or pushed, nothing happens to that right? Where that wishbone. Does that make sense? It only snaps if there's sort of pressure or pulling from both sides. So it's stabilized, which means like both of my hands, I could break it, right? If I'm playing with it, or two people are playing with it. Either way, that sort of holding of both of the prongs of it. So this part and this part, when you do that and you sort of wiggle it back and forth, it gives at some point, right? If the wishbone breaks. So that's similar to the hyoid. So if you push the hyoid on my neck one side, you can almost see it, like it's shifting. You know what I mean? Like you can see there's pressure on my neck. So, and it's hard to do in the model because it doesn't have the elasticity that we do. But the way to like break a hyoid is this. I mean, whether that pressure be both sides by hands, one hand, a ligature. Now,
here you have also the thyroid cartilage.
Correct.
On
So
each
let's
side,
go
right.
down, right? Let me go back before I get into injuries. The thyroid cartilage is like the Adam's apple, the white sort of fold, the prominence that you're seeing in Linda's fingers, that the point, right? That's what we see in men in Adam's apple.
Yeah.
That the thickness of that and how prominent it is always heavier, sort of thicker in men than women. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just because of our natural variation. Now, you can see that the thyroid cartilage sort of connects up to the hyoid by projections. Okay, those are the horns of the thyroid cartilage on the side, right? You can see. So all of these this is 4 times the size and it's plastic. So none of it's really going to give you the feel of what bone is in the body. Nonetheless, it's a great image to show the audience that you have to have pressure on these to really break them. Like they're floating around, they're structures that are relatively delicate in the neck, but they're not going to break with just like a slap. Does that make sense? Like a small bump to the neck isn't going to cut it. Now, I will go back and say that I am pretty much in agreement with Dr. Baden, and he has so much more experience than me, but I'm saying I've done over 3,000 autopsies, many jail deaths, okay? And then many suicidal hangings. So I'm sort of collectively gathering my experience.
Can I put this down for the moment?
Yes, yeah. So you can see me. And then what's happening in my experience, you can have an isolated fracture from a hanging, whether it's fully suspended or partially suspended. Okay, so you can break a hyoid, you can break a thyroid cartilage. So I'm not saying that any fracture is abnormal.
But
okay,
but tell us about 3.
3 is very unusual. It's not something I've ever seen. And I did a quick literature review right before meeting with here. And to this day, it wasn't that exhaustive. So maybe there is something out there and I'd love to be corrected if it is, because it would be very valuable to know. But in my quick research of PubMed, which is like the medical literature database, I've seen trying to be recreating. Anyways, long story short, I haven't seen 3 reported. I've seen 2 on one side, Usually, Baden is the GOAT. I said that on my last interview, so she can't take that.
That's what I know you did. That's why I put it up there, because you did say that.
And so my thing is that usually you need stabilization, meaning you can't just push it, right? If there's pressure on it, for it to bend, whatever structure it is, it usually needs stabilization from both sides and then at least pressure against that fixation. So meaning, I know this is big words, it can't just move back and forth. It has to have sort of a fixation, meaning stopped from just hanging in the neck and pressure put on it. And I have not seen that bilaterally, meaning my understanding is I don't remember right or left, but there was 2 on one side, 1 on the other.
There's a fracture on each side, and the hyoid bone's broken, and there's hemorrhage on all 3 fractures.
Right. So that's really important as well, Linda. And so I don't have the report, it's not, I don't know much of the data. I looked it up today because I haven't really followed the case as closely. I just do remember the 3 fractures, but the hemorrhage is really important, meaning this is something that I teach my residents, like, so doctors in training, anybody that works with me knows. So hemorrhage within a gunshot wound, hemorrhage within a stab wound, hemorrhage within a strangulation injury. What that means is that the person was alive, the victim was alive when this happened. So that notation is very important. So it's not just during the autopsy, the neck is, it's a very tight area. And so, like, you can, you know, as you're trying to take it out, you can, I fractured it before. So I normally have a whole thing where I feel it in place, make sure I don't feel anything. So I can say, okay, then if I feel the wiggliness come about while I'm taking it out, I know, oh, I did that as an artifact. Does that make sense? It was like a side effect of the process, because it's a very difficult, it's a blind removal, meaning you are putting your blade up there and you're not visualizing it. And then I also know there's no blood. If I break it after the fact, while I'm doing autopsy, there's no bleeding, there's no heartbeat, there's no blood pressure. So the person is deceased. And like, let's even back up. When I cut someone, or when Dr. Baden cuts someone for autopsy, there's no bleeding, right? It's because they're dead, right? If you cut a blood vessel, yes, blood will leak out, but there's no active bleeding. People don't bruise after death, you know, like that kind of thing. And so that bleeding within those 3 injuries tells me that happened while he was alive. So it's highly unusual, and he was alive. That's what I can tell you.
So, doctor, all these things that you would expect to see in a strangulation versus a hanging, what would you see in a hanging then? Just the absence of all of those things?
So most of the time, I see nothing. So if it's a suicidal hanging, I see like marks on the skin. If the candidate ligature is available, I always had it submitted, either pictures of it or in person, so I could review it to make sure that the mark is consistent. And I've had jail cases where I'm like, what the hell? This looks like a shoelace or something because it's so thin. But then I saw, oh, they really like rolled the bed sheet margin. So, you know, like it would make sense when I saw the actual, but if you told me, oh, they're hanging with the bed sheet and I have like a narrow strip, that my red flags.
Which was an issue. That was an issue in this case too.
So like, you always have to make sure everything's correlated. And like I said, I'm speaking in very general terms because I have no personal involvement in the case. And you probably have more data on it. That's why I listened to the first part of the show, because I didn't have all the facts. You know, I'm just speaking more generally and how I approach these cases. But, and it's unfortunate, but suicidal hangings do happen in jail. Like you can't, as much monitoring, as much suicide watch, you know, in terms of taking away laces and sheets and this, I've seen it done in shocking ways that unfortunately I wouldn't have even thought of, you know. Nonetheless, so it just has to be made sure that these findings are accounted for. I mean, there's pictures released, and like I said, I don't know all this is how the body was positioned, this is etc. I mean, I've seen sort of photos fly by, but I don't have all the nuances. And I'd be curious when I would have, let's say, like a case like this that would be either inconsistent or controversial. I mean, I would always like to get my I's dotted, T's crossed. I would probably get a forensic anthropologist involved to make sure that what I am documenting is reiterated, right? Like rubber stamped. I don't know. I think there was one in this case, but I mean, nothing, I don't know anything other than that sort of top line of, you know, hanging suicide. I don't know anything else about the details of the case. I don't know that we ever will, but that would be very important to understand.
Yeah, I think there's one more factor, I think, that hasn't really been discussed, and that is this was allegedly an incomplete hanging versus a, you know, dangling body from. So this is somebody who's leaning into the ligature, and is that a factor in figuring out what was legit and what wasn't?
I think that is like, you know, I think it goes both ways, meaning it's reported in the literature. You can see those fractures, you know, even in a leaning hanging, like a non fully suspended, partially suspended.
But we're talking about 3. Let's be careful. We're talking about 3 fractures. You don't usually see all 3 of those.
Right. So normally you can see it on one side, 1, maybe 2. The 3, meaning both sides affected, and the multiple is, I've never seen it in my life.
Right.
And that's all I can speak from. I don't have anything in the literature to support suicide, and I've never seen it. Haven't done the volume of Dr. Baden. I've done 3,000 autopsies, many suicide hangings. I mean, in Rhode Island, where I practice, that's the number, I think, don't quote me, but if not the number one method of suicide, it's really high, you know? So the volume that I've seen different, and I've seen lots of partial and fully suspended hangings, you know?
If you're hanging though too, you're going to be the ligature mark. If it's above those areas, that's another issue, right?
I think you would really have to see like where the mark is. Things can slip, like when the body leans forward or leans back, like you start out in a position, but where it was positioned finally is very important. So there's sort of these variables that I can't adequately assess without really knowing the details. But let's say, yes, that's a concern. And the number and the sidedness, does that make sense? Like the fact it's on both sides, not just one side.
Right. That's it. That's an important situation. How about the
doctor? We call that bilateral. That's what we call that.
Yeah, I know you said to me that you agreed with Michael's findings that this is
That's
more
right.
likely a homicide than a suicide.
I was very, to me, this is, I think, undetermined at least, meaning if we're looking at this case right now, it's not a slam dunk suicide to me. I will just say that. Knowing this limited information, I don't have video, or there is no video. I don't have incident reports. I don't have the normal case file that I would working a case like this. Does that make sense? Whether I'm working it as the primary pathologist or on a case review, as an expert. So there's so many elements that are missing, However, the baseline is that, I would say it's undetermined at least. Now, undetermined means we can't decide between two or more manners of death. And so homicide, suicide, I think that at least addresses the lack of information, the nebulousness, and that, it's not as clear cut to me a suicide as it was. But again, it wasn't my name on the paper. It wasn't me being the primary pathologist.
Right.
So I'll have to caveat it with that.
No, I am
armchair quarterbacking,
No, you and I talked about it, but I think that you're leaning more that if you had to make a call, you'd call this more. It's more looks like a homicide, but you can't say because you don't have all the information.
Right, and I mean, I think it would be hard for me in this case if I was in the chair of the primary pathologist, Dr. Sampson, to not at least call it undetermined. And if you think about it, we covered Karen Reed. I've been interviewed about it, Court TV, whatever. It's the same thing. There's too many variables that never were clarified, right? You can say, what if, or this could be likely, that could be likely. And I don't know. I know even less in this case than I did that case because that went to trial, right? But I think sitting here, even with all those variables being unaddressed or unknown, so I don't know which one.
Right. And I guess, I know you didn't hear most of Mark.
Undetermined,
I guess if you had the camera footage of the tier and who went into Jeffrey's cell and who was on the tier and who had access and who that would kind of help you, wouldn't it? All these things that Mark Epstein is trying to get.
These are critical elements when I am a primary pathologist, what I ask for. I don't just ask for the investigation. So, in Rhode Island, it would be like the state police would get involved, and then, the jails themselves have an investigative unit. I would have access to whatever video footage there was, not to keep, but to view.
Sure.
Any witness statements. Obviously people can lawyer up and not interview, but anything that is available, I would ask for. So this is not just a cut and dry, and I think we know this, like the autopsy and toxicology will tell me everything. Does that make sense? They're found dead. That's going to be it. I think that, in a prison death and in custody death, as we call them. And if you look at the National Association of Medical Examiners, they have a lengthy workup for those deaths. Like there's a position paper that says you need to do X, Y, Z because you need to rule out everything, check everything. And that just means when I say everything, it's not just the jail. It's like, what natural disease did he have? What toxicology? What, how was he as a person of X age, you know, in the system. So, because we know that other things can contribute to death. So, I mean, that all goes along. I mean, like Aaron Hernandez, the CTE, you know, like was that a element in his death, or you know, how advanced was it? So, you know, I know you talked about him earlier, and that's why I bring it up. So you know that there's other variables, and the mental state, you know, that they're in is also if they've seen a doctor in the jail. I mean, there's so many, I could go on and on because there's so many things to consider, and all of that makes a complete investigation and a complete file for consideration when you certify one of these deaths. It's not so cut and dry, like, you know.
It'd be nice if they give all that to Mark Epstein, because right now, to the most of us looking, it looks like with those 3 fractures and the bleeding, it looks like a homicide. But
or highly suspicious.
Highly suspicious.
We'll leave it like that, you know, because armchair quarterbacking with, I can't even do it accurately without all the data, you know. So that to me, I think, is what is appropriate. Is that I don't think it's as cut and dry to me. This is, again, my personal opinion. I'm not hired on the case. I'm not paid or anything. But I think I would want more information. And it just, again, like Dr. Baden has already said, it's not anything new that it's abnormal. You know, it doesn't jive with what we know to be the typical patterns. And everything in forensics is pattern recognition.
Wow.
Well, we appreciate that input, because you know, we aren't learning anything from the government. So you know, we have to turn
That's
to
beyond
experts.
my control. I have no magical powers with them.
No, I'm not blaming you for that.
Yeah.
No, it's very frustrating. I can only imagine what it's like for the family. But Doctor, thank you for popping on to help us.
Because you know, when we talk about it, it's still someone's loved one. You know,
Exactly.
to remember that, and every time it stirs up the name, it's hard for them to not necessarily have enough closure, as he spoke earlier. So
yeah, definitely.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Priya.
Thank you,
so
Priya.
much
Take care.
for
Bye.
See you
joining
next
us on
time.
Wednesday. Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
So before we run, I'm going to run that 10 hours of video. No, I'm going to.
No, you've got certain cuts of that. And we wanna
I
put
have
the questions,
pieces
by the way.
and bits. I have bits and pieces that I'm looking for now, of course, which means I've probably lost it. What I'm going to do is just go to different time codes. There's like 4 key moments in my expert opinion. There's maybe 4 key moments that are
And while you're looking for
interesting.
that, thank you, Joanne Jetaplatopoulos, another Justice Serve TV membership gift. We really appreciate it.
Okay. I just think I'm just blown away that they toss out this 10+ hours and say, here you go. Here it is.
Yeah, we're giving
We're
you
all good now.
transparency. That's part of our commitment to transparency. Okay.
It's embarrassing.
As you're doing this, Afton makes a point so similar to Birchmore. Yeah, look at
Yeah, no doubt about it.
That
No
video
doubt
and
about
that
it.
thing. Right.
Let's see. Let me hit my first point here. My first queued up point. Okay, this is obviously August 9, 2019. You can see folks wandering around that are, I don't know, is that Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, you know, you can't tell anybody from anybody. But at 7:49 is when you see this person they claim is Jeffrey Epstein walked to his cell, which is to the far right and beyond your vision. You can't see it. So see that little activity there? What? You'll see it start on the far left and then move across the screen. Let's see, let me get to the right spot here. Stand by. And this is the night before, right? This is the night before. And we're supposed to understand that it is his cell over there on the far right, although there's no further evidence than this video to show us that. So this is roughly 9:10, the night before he's found dead in his cell. Let's see if I can get that part going for you here. Okay. It should be coming up soon. Stand by. Let me get that. And there's a lot of this. It's 9 hours of a lot of nothing. Where are you?
I can see in the transparency. This is so transparent.
It is very transparent. Yeah. So I mean, this is what they're claiming. If you push in on this area right here, you can see there's one of the guards. There's kind of a guard station right over here. But okay, that's fascinating, if not helpful. Okay, so I'm gonna let this roll for about 15 seconds, and you'll see down here in this area where it looks like a stairwell kind of reaches down toward the lower level, is where you'll see the activity that is allegedly Mr. Epstein seen on camera alive for the last time. Okay, so and it's up. You tell me what's happening to this person, whoever this person may be. Are they just escorting this person to a cell? Is this person, were they sick, needed some assistance? It's totally unclear, both the image and the purpose. Come on, I know you're there. I've seen you before. That's what happens when you have 9. See that you can see some cops over here, some the activity around the desk. When you have 10 hours of video compressed into one file, it's very twitchy. Come on, I know you're there. I know as soon as I move this, he's going to pop up. So bear with me here just a second. We'll just see him pop up, I think. I hope.
I know when we ran it earlier, we went right to it.
Of course we did. I see. Okay, well, for some reason, it's gone. Uh-oh. It's another piece of missing video.
The idea is you can't tell who it is. You see orange garb.
You see somebody in
orange garb.
jumpsuit.
You
That's
said it
about
could be your grandmother. Mark said you couldn't tell.
Yeah, no, it's virtually impossible.
And then his brother was 6 feet tall, so it's not like.
Wait, here we go. I think. No, maybe not.
No.
And then you'll see. Let me see if I can get the next spot. 749. Hold on. I'm not giving up on this. Damn it. Stand by.
But the whole point of this is the stuff they released, and not. We're going to put that list up before we go again. Or the names of the unnamed guards, or the footage of Epstein being removed from his cell from the infirmary. Who was in the infirmary, the video allegedly taken by a handheld camera, the removal from the infirmary to the ambulance, who were the other detainees and inmates, where are their written statements, if any, were taken, when did they arrive in their tier, and where are they now? I mean, there's somebody walking.
Yeah, this is again. This is
that is.
No, that one looks younger for what that's worth. But at 7:49, I think I might have the wrong time code. 7:49 is when he's supposed to make that, and it's really kind of almost like he's being helped across the area there, and almost like, I don't know, that he's not fully capable. I don't know. It's okay.
But everyone gets the idea that this is like garbage that's been released. I mean, yeah, you can release it, but you should release it with the important things.
Well, that's what I think is so embarrassing, that it's like, ta-da! Okay, great, okay, wonderful. I think this is him coming now. You see that motion there? There we go. There he is. He's got his hands behind his back. He's walked across. Can't even see his head. There, now you see his head.
Face. There's no head.
You just see the head as it comes above the railing as you go by, and the hair looks white-ish. Like I said, could be my grandmother.
There's no head. There's no head. You don't see a face. There's no head.
Yeah, that's it. And then here's that glitch. Let's just show that glitch just for fun.
One that's missing.
This is, well, it's that weird little top of the hour. Hey, every 24 hours we just kind of glitch out because we have the oldest equipment known to man. Let's see, 12 o'clock.
This reminds me of the way Karen Reed, they said, oh, yeah, well, we have videos all the time. Here they are.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see the latest Bondi video is going to be released of this glitch that happens all the time, right? It's normal. Yeah, it's normal if it's 1963. She said whether the cameras were 1999. Is that what she said?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Let's see. This is just so darn tricky. Such a big piece of file that it's harder to maneuver it very carefully. Okay, we'll let that roll while we're chatting about some other stuff. So we'll see this little glitch in about a minute. So what we learn? Nothing. We learned nothing. You know, all of the stuff that's been released, we haven't learned a damn thing that we didn't know before. And that is, there are many more questions than there are answers.
Right. I mean, and to me, the fact that his brother, to me, you keep asking for this stuff. You go down to the stations, you ask for it, and no one will give you an answer. And you have lawyers that no one will give you an answer of the simplest stuff. I mean, it's a simple thing, you know. What are they hiding? Why can't you name the guards? Why can't you tell them who the other inmates are? I mean, there's going to be court records for the other inmates. The question is, who was on the tier, right?
And why, you know, back to the cabinet meeting, why would the president get so upset about it? You know, if he had checked, you know, he's very big on X, right? Or actually Truth Social. He said he was kicked off X. What was the #1 trending topic yesterday and the day before?
It was Epstein cover up, I think.
Yeah, it was Epstein, just
right.
Epstein. So, I just went past the glitch. Did you see it? Did you look?
Yep, I saw it. I saw the glitch.
Yeah, I mean, it's that fast. And supposedly that's normal for this particular
well, they lose about a minute. They lose about a minute of
yeah, and nobody's explained, you know, technologically why a minute.
And it looks like one of these Tom Cruise movies where, you know, they're doing the camera and they've got a glitch and the guard looks up and there's been a glitch and it's back to normal. But in that glitch is when, you know, the guys who've entered the art museum came in, right?
Yep. It may mean nothing. It may be 100% a technological, you know, shortcoming of the system, but it makes people suspicious. Everything that didn't work, the people that weren't awake, the cameras that got erased accidentally, you know, inquiring minds want to know. There goes the glitch. Did you see the glitch?
Yep, there you go. Can you show it again? Can you?
No, are you kidding me? No.
Right.
That's the problem. It's just This is not easy enough to fine tune. Yeah. I mean, I can get within like 2 minutes and that's it. Anyway, yeah, it's embarrassing. And then as they go through, this is midnight. So now we're on the 10th, right? This is when they're going to find the body at about 6:34 that morning, right?
Right.
And there's a moment here I thought was kind of odd, where if in fact this is what's happening, it makes no sense. You'll see a guard or somebody taking what looks like a tray of perhaps food or something in the general direction of where we believe the Epstein cell was, right? But there's no immediate reaction like, oh my God, there's a dead body in there. It just seems like I'm just dropping off this food. Well, it's 6:34, a total of 6 minutes later, that apparently there's some hubbub and there's a gathering of a bunch of guards. Well, if he was dead for approximately 2+ hours, why when that guard goes through there with that first piece of that tray, why isn't he immediately aware that there's a guy dangling from a sheet in that cell? He should have been. Let's see if I can find it exactly here. It's at 6:28, I believe it is. And it just seems odd that in that 6-7 minute time span, it becomes an emergency, and it wasn't.
And we have to thank you for going through this whole video, by the way.
Oh, it was exciting. Yeah. You know, I'm looking, you know, the worst part was there was nothing, not anything worth looking at. 22, 24. Okay, there's the 28. Let me make sure I get this dude in the shot. Okay, so we should be able to see, I think it's 6:28, the guy dropping off, or he's walking off in that general direction. Looks like he's sort of holding some sort of food tray or something. But this is still a full 6 minutes before there's obviously some activity that the guards are gathering to talk about.
By the way, after we finish this, we're going to put up the 2-page report so people can see it, the metadata on the final draftee, and we'll end with Mark's areas of questioning that he had, that you can all take a screenshot of it.
Okay, so now we're at 6:30. See, there's a guard. He just still made that delivery of whatever that was, right? This is still 4 minutes before there's any real sense of urgency or additional guards hovering around that station. That's the guard station up there, top center part of the video. It's still going to be 4 minutes before, and they can see the cell. It's right there. I mean, that's why they have the guard station there, because they can see all of the cells.
What do you mean when they weren't asleep?
Well,
when
yeah.
When the two of them weren't, when the two of them weren't asleep.
Yes, you don't see it quite as well when you're asleep. But yeah, so whoever went there to drop off that tray or whatever it was, why didn't they see anything or say anything? But 6 minutes later, all of a sudden now a couple of the guards start getting interactive. And here's this guy. He's back. I think it's a he. I'm guessing it's a he. But this is at 6:31. And why? You know, this was something Mark was asking for. He said, I want to see the video after that. He wanted to see the video from this point till they removed the body. Why don't we have that? You would see that body on a gurney being wheeled right through that foyer. Right there on that lower tier. Why didn't they release that?
Right to the infirmary, with cameras,
I don't know. It's frustrating. It's annoying.
And in the infirmary, and you're going to tell me that there's no cameras of course there's cameras in the infirmary for security. Absolutely.
And I remember that detail that he pointed out, which was the clothing change, that there's a still picture of him in pajamas, right? And so he's not sleeping in his PJs in the cell. You know, he's in the orange jumpsuit.
Right.
So he said somebody actively changed his clothes.
Right. And you see a little walking around here.
Yeah, and it's 35 now, and you've got now there's two or three guards kind of, you know, the activity level has stepped up a little bit. You see another one back here. I don't get it.
And Mark wants the video until noon the next day. He
wants from here forward.
Who went into the cell afterwards too? Was it cleaned up? Why were things moved? Why was the body taken out? Why was the body moved? He wants to see, and there should all be video of all this.
Of course. And who believes, on a related front, that the only videos confiscated were child pornography downloaded by Jeffrey Epstein? Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? No.
There is a video of every person who ever fornicated in any of the properties that he has. Everybody who's been there saw the cameras. There were video rooms. And all we found, child porn, and we were never going to be releasing that.
Yeah, no one believes that.
It's
no one absolutely
unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay. Look at the page. Look at the report. The U.S. Department. Can we bring up
that massive report?
Massive report. We're waiting for a massive investigation.
If I can hoist that giant report up here. Hold on.
Hoist it up there, right?
Let's see. Stand by. Yeah, I said, well, no, really, this is a government report. Where's the report? Where's the real report? Government doesn't do anything in a page and a half, do they? I don't think so.
The first line and the last paragraph, if you call it a paragraph, are kind of really interesting too. Because
I mean, when I first started reading it, I said, "Oh, this makes perfect sense."
Look at the first line.
It says, "As part of our commitment to transparency, hello, Pinocchio. I'm not sure you're talking about the same kind of transparency we are."
Right.
And then it just goes on to, you know, tick off the things that they believe people have been concerned about, and suggesting that what we're providing you answers all of those questions.
Right. And then we go to page 2. Right.
Let's see. Let me see. I had some high points I thought about.
You had some high points on page 1. So
let me see if any come to mind here. We have labored at the very end, to that end, referencing all of these. You know, we're fighting child exploitation. We're looking to bring justice for the victims. To that end, while we have labored to provide the public with maximum information regarding Epstein and ensured examination of any evidence in the government's possession, it is the determination of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. So suck on that, public. We're not helping you.
Right.
Okay.
And that there was no systematic review revealed no incriminating client list, whatever. But the client list is in quotes. Okay, you see that? It's like what is the word is? I didn't have sex with that woman. Remember, everyone? What is sex? What is client? The quote of client list. What is a client list? All right.
Yeah. See, that's why I think people are fixated on, like it's a physical document, and it says on it, my list by Jeffrey Epstein, and then it's got these people's name. No, it could be anything. It could be a chip. It could be a thumb drive. It could be a hard drive that's been bashed into pieces that could be maybe resurrected. It could be a part of a computer. It could be so many things that are not really a list. It could be an encrypted whatever.
Right.
So I'm not looking for a list. I'm looking for the information.
And I love the last part. This is where we got the videos. We saw the enhanced video, right? The actual video, the actual raw video has been the FBI enhanced relevant footage, what they consider relevant footage, just like Brady material, what you think is Brady material, right? By increasing its contrast, balancing the color, and improving its sharpness for greater clarity and viewability. Okay, that's what we saw.
That's
it wasn't particularly helpful. And by the way, again, can we put up that metadata? Like if you go to save the report,
I think I've got that here.
If you go right to the Department of Justice and go to save the report as a PDF, here's what I got. Is when I went to save it as a PDF. Just save it as a PDF, because what I got was.
It's coming. It's coming here. And this is you sleuthed this out, right?
Yeah. Final draft E.
Final draft E.
So I want to see drafts A, B, C, and D now. Okay, if we're doing discovery in a civil case, I want the drafts A, B, C, and D because this is final draft E that got released. All right, and that's when you go to save it from the PDF from their site, right on their site. All right.
Oopsie.
Yeah. Oopsie. Okay, so that's kind of. I thought that was kind of interesting. So let's put up.
I'm exhausted. We're gonna put up that list of these. These are basically Mark's biggest concerns of all the things he's been looking into. Let me grab this.
And he had some more that he told us about the PCR that he has gotten, and the 911 call. We probably should add those eventually to here because I don't have them on here from when he and I spoke. You can't get a 911 call. You can't get the Hospital Care Act. Look, so anyone wants to take a picture of that, you can add to it that he's been looking for. He wants the who called 911, the 911 tape. He wants to listen to it, what was said, and he wants the hospital care report, the PCR as it's called. Okay, and those are some other things that he has asked for and can't get. So there we go. I mean, you can't get this basic stuff. You can see why he is not going to rest until he learns. And he's fine if he learns the truth, whatever the truth is, right. Aren't we all?
It's a totally separate issue. It's a totally separate issue. I know people try to conflate them because Epstein was obviously a bad person. I get that. But does that mean that we shouldn't know how he died? We're just supposed to take the government's word? I don't take the government's word for anything.
Nope, not anymore.
No.
Not
okay.
Anymore.
So
this is our first part of our coverage, and we're going to continue this. We're going to stay on this case, and we can continue that pressure, just like we're going to continue with Sandra Birchmore next Wednesday. But tomorrow, we're going to have part 2 of our coverage of Epstein. I'm not going to focus on so much of whether Jeffrey Epstein's death is a homicide, as I tend to think it is. I mean, I don't know what my husband thinks. I mean, he thinks I think he said it sounds more like a homicide.
I think he thinks it's a homicide. Yeah.
But me being a lawyer and having done these cases, that's how I feel. And then the question becomes tomorrow, the victims, right?
Right. So we'll have a victims agreed to come on and chat with us, and then we will have the director of the 2 very special guests, the director of the mega hits on Netflix, both Filthy Rich and part 2, which was Monster Behind the Monster, the Ghislaine Maxwell story. So the director will be here after we talk to the survivor, who will chat with us as well about her experiences and what this all means to her. What if anything? I mean, she experienced what she did. Does she really care? What the government provides or doesn't provide? I don't know. I'm curious to get her take.
And the director, do we know the director of these 2 award-winning
I think if
documentaries?
I mean, I might even have to pull a tiny little clip. I think I can fair use a tiny little clip, but I'll check with the director, Lisa Bryant, to see if that's all right or not.
That's Michael's wife, everybody, in case you didn't know. She, just like me, she has
She's
her
the
own
brains of the
career, and
operation.
she
That's
is
right.
fabulous, and she is wonderful. And, maybe we should talk to her about what kind of investigation we can do, Michael Bryant, here to help her and Justice Serve TV about who the inmates are. And I will say again, if you know who any of those inmates were on those tier, have any access to them, or are the inmate, you can email us at justiceservetv@gmail.com. We will only share your email, obviously, with Mark Epstein, and we'll see if you can provide any information. Maybe we'll do some more.
Maybe it'll be a third episode, a third
There's gonna
docu-series.
Yeah, maybe there'll be a third in the docu-series is to find
Jeffrey
out what
Epstein,
really
the
happened.
aftermath. Yeah.
The aftermath of what the government did provide, Justice Serve TV, we'll get it for you.
Okay. All right, then. Well, I guess we'll see you tomorrow. We'll do that at 6 o'clock. In the meantime, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
And I'm Linda Kenney Baden. Before you go, I'd like you to please hit that subscribe, the share, the like, and the notify button. And if you're on X, come over and do that. And also, if you're on X, just hit the follow for Justice Serve TV, so that when we're on the air, we go live, we stream at both places, you'll know we are there.
Riding flames, they charge with